And yes.
Oh, you turned on your iMessage.
That was the weekend ahead. I did.
Is that for good?
Yes.
Finally, thank you. You're saving me money.
Well, I figured out how to make it so I wasn't getting all my wife's text messages as well.
Nice. Well, thank you for saving me money.
Anytime. It's very unnerving to think, well, she must be getting my text messages too, and my friends are not exactly, the most polite people, some of them. So, hey, there you go.
Very vulgar?
Some of them. Just like you, besides you. Everyone else.
I could be vulgar sometimes, but I'm not that bad.
No.
I think Mike's worse than me.
Thank you.
Perhaps.
That does wonders for my reputation there, Josh. Thank you.
No.
Hey, no problem. Hey, if it's Leaf related, you can get a little vulgar.
No, you're a good so we are here. Let me make sure that everybody's seeing us. We are live. I want to make sure that we're coming through because make sure they're seeing us because like I said, it's created 12.
Oh,
okay, good.
My green drink is chunky this morning. Just had a big chunk of something. It didn't taste right.
I love Mike's.
Just don't spill it on your computer, Josh.
It's all in my nose.
Okay, please. I really don't need to hear that.
Boy. All right, here we go.
Oh, I didn't shake that good enough. Oh.
All right, so I got some stuff we're going to talk about. I'll go right to you with news, Josh. You want to start from the top there?
About the Johansson, sure.
Yeah, we'll start there.
I won't comment on it. I'll just say what it is.
Bring it up, and then I'll go into some of my stuff in my blog today, which is 10 guys who could be traded this year.
And we have to talk about that thing that you sent me last night, Josh.
Yeah, that's that. I was just going to bring that up. You saw the Stamkos thing, right, Eck?
Yeah, let's talk about that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
It is Monday, September 22nd. The first. Well, actually, yesterday was the first day of preseason games. But
today's when it counts, though. Today, our teams start. It's all about that. Hello, Hockey World. How you doing? It's Monday, September 22nd, 2014.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Josh Rimmer.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock, where we sort of give you the news and fill you in on rumors and anything else we want to throw your way. You never know.
And rant and rave and all that fun stuff.
Yes. When you put Mike and Josh together in a room, you never know what's going to happen. And along those lines, let's start with the news. Josh, continue.
Okay, well, let's begin with Columbus, the recent news, which came out probably within the last couple hours, and that's the latest offer from Ryan Johansson's agent, Kurt Overhart, which was a 2-year deal at $9.4 million or $4.7 million a year. It's down more than $2 million a year from the original offer. However, let's be honest, that original offer was ludicrous. I know I said I wasn't going to comment on this, but it just needs to come down.
There's so much for that.
Yeah, exactly. Johansson's not worth $4.7 million.
It's not really a comment. It's more like a.
Yes. I said I wasn't going to comment. I can't help it.
No, that's fine. I mean, I think that obviously, I heard about this on Friday, kind of off the record, and what's amazing about this is the fact that when you look at it, what happened here, right, is they came in like at $6 million, almost $7 million, and now suddenly have just knocked $2 million off their price. I mean, the problem with negotiating is that's not how you negotiate. You don't come in like it's like telling you I want to sell you my car for $150,000, and then I'm going to come back and you say no, I don't want it. I'm like, how about $20,000? It puts everything into a weird frame of mind. If it started at 4.7 or 4.5, this would be done by now. I really do believe that. They would have gotten done. They would have found a common ground. They would have gotten to 4.
Right.
No, you don't think so, Mike?
No, because I think they only get to 4 if they did start at around 7.
No.
Because now this is showing, this is Overhart showing that, okay, I'm going to give back significant amount here. We're going to get into the realm where it's getting to be what we consider to be reasonable, and we're giving up something. The Blue Jackets are going to say, well, I don't think 4.7 is reasonable, and they're going to probably counter with 3.5 or 3.6, and what will end up happening is probably sometime in the next week they'll meet in the middle, and as I've said a couple times, I think they're going to meet around $4 million. It'll be a victory for Jarmo Kekalainen if there's a 3 at the beginning of a 2-year bridge deal.
Yeah, I think it might have to get there too. It might have to get to 3 point something. We've heard over the weekend, rumors of the KHL and stuff like that, and not to get into the KHL rant again, but I don't see this as a KHL option. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Bobrovsky last year, right? Right before he signed, we heard KHL offers too. The offer was out there. It's very different than the offers Johansson's getting. By the way, $10 million in the KHL is like $12 million in the NHL because of the taxes. Of course, that is if you get paid. It's worth that. But if you don't get paid, it's not worth that. So.
Well, you heard about Torrey Krug getting offered a KHL offer, and I think that's right now. That's sort of like the last remaining threat out there. We're going to say I'm going to go to Switzerland, and it's like there's no money there, so it's either the KHL or sit out.
Right, and this is a good negotiating tactic, and it also you know why? Because it benefits all sides. For the KHL to do this, it benefits the KHL. Because their fans look like they're doing something, and for agents to do this, it benefits them because they have another offer, And so whenever you hear about an offer that benefits both sides, it kind of reminds me of the Mark Cuban trying to buy the Pittsburgh Penguin days. Remember that? You would hear, heard all these people talking about Mark Cuban's going to buy the Penguins, and Mark Cuban would always get involved with before he even owned a basketball team, would always get involved in every possible, baseball, basketball, tried to buy the Pirates at one point, and you heard all this stuff, and he never did it, but by saying it, he never spent a single dollar and got a ton of publicity out of it, this reminds me of that. This is the KHL's getting publicity. The KHL's could even go to the agent and say, listen, you need a KHL offer. We need to make a KHL offer. We're not going to really do this, but here it is. We're making, the quote unquote, and so. I don't trust any of this, and I don't think the Blue Jackets are going to buy it, Mike. I don't think.
I think there's room for compromise here. I think Johansson wants to come in. I just think that Overhart and Johansson want to set the mark and get the highest bridge deal that they possibly can. And like we said before, I think the highest was Matt Duchene's at 3.5. If they come in at 3.95, I think they both. I think Johansson would consider it a victory, and Kekalainen would be able to say, well, we didn't pay him $4 million. It's just under $4 million, but it's sort of a Pyrrhic victory.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of what they want to do here. I again want to kind of compliment. I think JD's done a good job at this. I think that the Blue Jackets have done a good job at this so far. But I think that I don't know. I think it will get done, but I still think we're a ways away. It feels like it's not going to get done soon, and it still feels like even though this offer is out there now, and they've come down a lot. It's interesting that it got out. I mean, I'm sure it leaked on the side of the player, because of the fact that the player wants to look like he came down a couple $1 million, right? And I'm making a move here, but you have to remember the reality of this is like I said, it's like the $150,000 for your car, now $20,000. The reality of this is it's not really the player coming down as much as it needs to be at all. But further down the road in Tampa, Josh, we have some other news to discuss.
Well, and there's actually some more news to go along with that Tampa news. Steven Stamkos was written a couple days ago that they were might be a little concerned with Stamkos since he was being held out and not practicing with the team, not skating with the team. He apparently had minor surgery a month ago to remove a bolt from his tibia, which he broke last year, and the Lightning said they weren't going to rush him back, and they said that apparently yesterday. Well, guess what? He's on the ice right now, playing in a scrimmage with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Is there room for concern now? I don't know. I mean,
I looked into it and talked to my people in Tampa. Very very happy people. My people in Tampa, living in beautiful southern Florida. But no, and they really weren't concerned at all. They said essentially, kind of what the coach even came out and said. They know what Stamkos is. They have a lot of players in camp. They have a lot of possibilities. They have a lot of young players, and there's absolutely no reason to play. I mean, if they had a game right now, if the opening night was now, he would play. So I don't think that there's any reason for concern. It's a little bit scary, of course, because but it's nothing more. It's probably even less than the Claude Giroux thing, in reality.
Yeah.
From a standpoint of most of these organizations, Drew Doughty has an injury. The number of players have had little bangs and bruises. In Toronto, Tyler Bozak and David Clarkson had lower body injuries. The team is not rushing these players back. They have 2 weeks to go. 7 or 8 preseason games. There's no benefit in Stamkos playing in a preseason game and re-injuring his leg. All I know is when I heard that last night, I said to a friend, I says, the collective sphincters of Tampa Bay Lightning fans must have been tightening yesterday after hearing that news because, last year without Stamkos, the reason that team was in a position to make the playoffs was because Marty St. Louis played phenomenal, and then he ended up getting traded when Stamkos got back, but they would not be a playoff team if it wasn't for Marty St. Louis, and Marty St. Louis is not there any longer. So if Stamkos is out for a prolonged period, that team is a bubble team instead of a team that's going to challenge for the Atlantic Division title.
Right. I completely agree. Go ahead, Josh.
Well, Gary Bettman's been speaking on Sportsnet today, talking about a range of different subjects. One being interviewed by George Stroumboulopoulos, who's one of the new hosts on Rogers Sportsnet. I'm not sure if he's with Hockey Night in Canada as well on Saturdays.
I don't think so.
Oh, he's not.
I don't think so, but I'm not sure. He's a great guy.
Strombo's the best. Actually, I should try to get him on with us.
You really should. I know he follows. He does watch the website and everything. So check it out.
He's a good buddy of mine. But anyway, not to name drop. He's
I'm going to pick that name up off the floor, Josh. Right back.
I met him yesterday, Josh. What are you talking about?
One should not it's Wayne. No, I'm just kidding. Continue.
Mention you're a friend. But anyway.
My one friend. While Josh is laughing, let me give the quote because it brings.
Well, it's before the Leaf quote, actually.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna throw to you on the Leaf quote.
Okay, you throw it to me.
Wow.
Strombo interviewed.
Throwing to people now. This has gotten way too professional for me.
Strombo's interviewing Bettman. It's called the Canadian Club Lunch, which apparently is on Sportsnet or The Fan. And he was asked by Strombo about what's been happening in the NFL and media scrutiny. And Bettman said, when you make a mistake, it gets magnified. Sport can be a vehicle for positive social change, but adds that key for NHL is being proactive on topics like domestic violence. NHL has no plan. Now I'm going to throw to Mike for his quote on the Leafs.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Josh.
You're welcome.
Good job. Well played, Mike. You got to start with the thank you, Josh. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah. The comments regarding a second team in Toronto, which piqued my interest, according to Gary Bettman. If we decided to put a second team in Ontario and before their first season the Leafs won the Cup, okay, sure. The second team wouldn't.
Which is more unlikely.
Yeah. But what he's saying is, he says, usually in a market where there are two teams, even if it is a hockey mad market like Toronto, you have one team that's going to be a really successful financial franchise and one that could barely skim along. And you have the dynamic. You have the dynamic in Chicago in Major League Baseball with the Cubs and the White Sox, in the NBA with the Clippers and the Lakers, where you have an establishment team. Even though the White Sox have been in existence, for
the White Sox do pretty well.
Yeah, but they don't make the money that the Cubs do, and the Cubs have an
the Cubs are just extraordinary. I mean, that's I have a tough. I usually agree with a lot of what Mr. Bettman says, but I don't agree with this one because it also flies in the face of how hard they have worked to try to keep the Islanders in New York. I mean, that's the other thing I worry about. Anyway, continue, Mike.
Yeah, but that's the prime example here. The Islanders are a struggling financial franchise in the greater New York area. I mean, they're struggling because their owner was, and
It's
they're
struggling because
generally
they haven't won in a very long time, and they've got an old building, but that's not a struggling franchise.
well. I mean, we'll see, and we'll see if the move to Brooklyn, converts them into a thriving franchise. I mean, they have a lot of young players, but I think what he's saying is that a second team in Toronto is not at the top of the agenda.
Yeah.
I mean, I think teams like Quebec, teams like Seattle, if they want to go to Vegas, I don't think they want to, but I think two teams make sense, and the only way they go for a second team in Toronto is if they get that $1 billion plus fee that they were talking about. And honestly, I don't see anybody, unless their name is Rogers or Bell, to pony up $1 billion for an NHL franchise.
We should do a Kickstarter. Let's do a Kickstarter. Let's see if we can get that $1 billion together.
Jay Silly has given $100 million.
We got a couple hundred people watching right now. Come on, if each of you put in a couple $100,000 a piece, we'd be almost there. We would not even be 1/10 of the way there. No, this is I mean, I think that this is Bettman trying to diffuse the Toronto craziness, probably at the request of the Toronto Maple Leafs MLSE, wanting to say, listen, get out there and diffuse this, because they don't want this. It doesn't help MLSE right now. I mean, obviously, eventually it will help them because they'll make a lot of money on whatever deal happens, but until that happens, or until that's ready to happen, they want it to be exactly not happening, and they'll say everything they can to show that it's not happening yet. But
okay,
again,
I'm gonna throw to Josh here. Josh.
Yes, Mike. Thank you. Also, Bettman talking more about the expansion. He said that he reiterated NHL has no plans to expand right now. Says symmetry is not a reason to expand. Things can fall out of the sky, and it's up to those in charge to deal with those. He hints at a return to the Premier Games, an NHL regular season in Europe, rather than expanding to that continent. He said, waking up in Toronto when a guy came up to him and said, "I really don't like you," he replied, "But you really don't know me."
I know words are coming out of your mouth, Josh. I just can't understand them. Not because of you, just because this quote completely confuses me. What is it? Can we summarize what he's saying here? Someone, please? Mike? Maybe?
I can't.
What do you mean?
I need a cold compress.
It was very confusing. Things falling out of the sky. Yeah.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. No, I
mean, what's the gist of this quote? What's the gist, Josh? What do you think he's trying to say here?
He's saying that expansion basically can happen, but it's not in the plans right now. But the way he made it seem that it could fall out of the sky makes me seem that it is a possibility, right?
And I think what this comes back to is the same thing we've been saying forever, and I wish they would just freaking come out and say this the way it is meant to be, that if we get an owner and a city and a building, we'll expand there. This is what it comes down to. They have owners that don't have cities. They have buildings that don't have owners. They have cities that don't have buildings. But if they get all three of these things, then hell yeah, we'll expand there. That's what he means by falling out of the sky. He means that
they want ready-made scenarios. They don't want to go someplace like remember back in the day when the Atlanta Flames moved to Calgary, they moved into the Calgary Corral, which had I think 10,000 seats. Before they built the Saddle Dome. They don't want to go into some place and have a caretaker building for a couple of years where they're not going to make money. They want an NHL-ready building. They want a city that's ready to support it. They want ownership lined up, A, B, C, D, E, and then, okay, we'll go. Until then, he's got 30 teams, and he's comfortable.
It's the old NHL goes by the old motto of, don't expand until kind of the pressures are pushing you into expansion. And right now they're doing okay. They're doing great. The NHL's thriving. So the only thing that would make them expand is if some billionaire came along and said, "Hey, I want to put a city. And then they'll do it." And if they have a building and they have a person who's really wealthy who wants to handle it, then yeah, they'll do it. That's really. It's not like we're going to expand by 2 teams, in the next 5 years scenario in their minds. Although Some people will tell you that it is that, but they're not. They're definitely saying, at least at this point, 1 year in, they're saying that that's not the issue. But I want to get to my top 10 most tradable players for my blog today. But first, I actually have a hockey highlight to show you. I wanted to show you this because this is, last night there was some preseason games, and did you guys check out the save that Ben Scrivens made on Curtis Glencross in the Calgary Edmonton game?
I did not.
This is worth seeing. So here we go. We're gonna play it up there. This is it's on loop, so that's the end of it there. But this was a hell of a save. I mean, this is like where we are, back in hockey here, kind of out of nowhere.
Wow!
Gets his paddle across, makes the save.
Yes.
That's so. Welcome back, hockey.
Nice.
Yeah, Ben Scrivens can do that, but he can also. No, never mind.
Yeah, that was
you
just
can
a
also
great
let
save.
one in a playoff game off a stanchion too.
Yep, just a great save indeed. So so let me get to my story here today. I put up the there's possibilities of players being traded all the time, of course. But when I was looking through this time of year, usually I start, we get into the regular season. There's not a whole lot of rumors flying around yet because, teams want to see what they have before they start moving pieces and things like that. Right. But so you try to look into the crystal ball a little bit and talk to people and say, okay, what are the UFAs that are going to be that are pending next year, and who has interest in them, and could they possibly be moved? So we're gonna start at number 10 and move our way down on the list here, and I'll get your reaction, Josh, to these players, and Mike, yours as well. And these are not necessarily in the best of orders. I didn't spend a lot of time really numbering these. I mean, I think some of them are more valuable than others, but this I think is pretty good. Now, number 10, starting with number 10, I'm going to go with Joel Ward. Okay, Joel Ward is a UFA next year. He's 33 years old. He is reunited this year with Trotz from Nashville. But I'm trying to remember. For some reason, I think there wasn't the greatest ending with Trotz and Joel Ward in Nashville. I can't put that all together. I've been calling people this morning, and no one could remember.
He had that really good playoff run, and he took advantage of that and got the free agent deal with Washington. I'm not sure if there was any animosity between the two, but they were paying him less than $1 million, and he's making $3 million now. So I think it was more monetary than anything.
I think it was. I don't think there was anything else, but I'm not sure. But Joel Ward why I say this is, we don't know which way Washington's going to go yet, and Washington, could make the playoffs. They could be on a couple-year plan, and it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if the Capitals took a little step forward this year and actually solidified some of their positions, and then put themselves in a spot to make a really significant run, which I think is what they need to do. And I kind of think I'm going to see the Caps tonight down there playing the Flyers here in the preseason game, and I'm going to talk to Barry Trotz about this after the game for sure. I think it's okay for him to step back. So Joel Ward will be 34, and saying the Capitals are maybe not in the biggest run, here or looking like a total contender, or even if Ward's not a big piece of their puzzle, he is a playoff performer, and as a UFA is very gettable. What do you think, Josh?
Well, there's a couple of guys on the right side now in Washington that Joel's going to be, I think, fighting for ice time with. I mean, what happened? What is Tom Wilson going to make this team? The young rookie. There's also Chris Brown on the right side as well. And in front of him, he's got Troy Brouwer and Alex Ovechkin. So I don't know how the ice time is going to be divvied out, and if he's going to get the ice time that he needs in order to put the points up. My guess, I think he's more like a 35-40 point forward, and he's going to be toiling on the third and fourth line. So I don't know if there's room in Washington for Joel Ward anymore.
Well, I know that there are reports out there that Trotz is toying with the idea of putting Ovechkin on the left side this year, so Ward could be a top six instead of being a third line guy. But to X's point, he's played in the Western Conference. He played well in the Western Conference, which opens up a lot of possibilities at the deadline if Washington's out of contention. His salary is $3 million, prorated in February or March at the deadline. That's not a lot to fit under a cap. So he's cost effective. He's a playoff performer. He's a big body. It all fits to some team who's in contention, needing one solid, tough winger. So I think if the Capitals decide to move him, they could probably get a good second round pick, or even a low first, or a prospect for a guy like Joel Ward.
Yeah, I'm with you. Now, number 9, I've got Johnny Boychuk, who might be moved before the season even begins still. Mm-hmm. The Jets have. I heard over the weekend. I heard the Jets' name mentioned with Johnny Boychuk, which again brings up speculation of are the Bruins looking at Evander Kane? Because the Bruins have a lot of interest and really want to get Evander Kane. If I was to say the three teams I've heard the most interested in Kane, the Bruins would always be in that list every time I look around and talk to people. So the Jets and the Oilers, of course, have also been involved with the Boychuk talks, and this could happen sooner or later. And I also heard that the Bruins might be very close to today or tomorrow announcing that they've signed Riley Smith. So that is, knowing that as well, I think that we could look at something that this could happen sooner than later. I think Boychuk, he's a 30-year-old. He's going to be 31 as a UFA. He's a player, and he's definitely a player on most teams that aren't called the Boston Bruins. I mean, the Bruins just have so much defensive depth. He's a top, and arguably a top 4, definitely a top 6 on almost every team in the league. Mm-hmm. Josh.
Yeah, Boychuk, again, I mean, look at that blue line. It's pretty crowded, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got Chara, Seidenberg, Hamilton, McQuaid, Krug, Bartkowski, Kevin Smith. I
love
think
Chasing Amy,
it's
by the way.
Boston.
Chasing Amy was a great movie. Kevin Smith is really an amazing director. Continue it, Josh.
Kevin Smith. I said Kevin Millar.
Or Kevin Miller.
Kevin Miller.
Yeah, Kevin Miller. Yeah, I said it right. Mike, I didn't say Kevin Millar. Anyway.
I think Kevin with an A, so I'm sorry. It's weird.
It's all right.
Kevin Millar is a baseball player,
the Red Sox former Red Sox first baseman from
Correct.
Oh, okay. Well, if you ever want to have him on the show, I have his number 2.
Right.
Friend.
Oh,
anyway.
hold on.
Let me pick that up. Sorry.
Well, in 1987, when I took First Lady, then Nancy Reagan around my camp for her Just Say No. Anyway, sorry, continue. That is actually true.
Boston obviously has to move Boychuk out. There is no room whatsoever. Can they get something decent for him? Heck, I don't know. I mean, he's a serviceable defenseman, but I don't think he's a top pairing defenseman, like a top 2 defenseman. No. Maybe a top 4 defenseman, maybe a second pairing defenseman, but I don't know if you're going to get a lot for him. He still hasn't really produced what a lot of people thought he was capable of doing, and obviously he's kind of been soured on in Boston because he hasn't really contributed points-wise yet. So I don't know what they could get for him, but I think they definitely should try to move him.
Mike?
Well, I mean, I think Boychuk is it's very possible he's going to get traded because of the $3 million salary and because they still have to sign Krug. It depends on what they want to sign Krug for. If it's just a 2-year bridge deal, if it's a 1-year deal, or if they want to extend him long term and save money on a long term deal. Get him like the Leafs signed Jake Gardiner for $4 million for 5 years. They could save a significant amount of money and down the line if they sign him to the long term deal. Problem with Boychuk is wherever he gets traded, if it's not a place that he doesn't want to stay, he's going to go. He's going to be a UFA. He'll walk at the end of the year. I believe he's from Alberta. I think he's from Edmonton. So I'm not looking at his profile, but I think he is from Alberta. And if he is, then Edmonton would be a place that he would probably re-sign with. And Andrew Ference, who's the Oilers captain, it was his longtime defensive partner with the Bruins, so that would give Dallas Eakins a solid veteran pairing, which is something that Edmonton has needed, that defensive solidity and depth for a long time. But I think he's going to be traded sometime this year because the Bruins, as Josh said, do have a lot of depth, including Kevin Miller on defense.
Along these lines, number 8 is Johnny Oduya. Do you think you'll be in Chicago at the end of the year? He's definitely best name in hockey, I think. You can just so great for headlines, Johnny Oduya. He's just awesome for headlines. But he could also be traded before the season. He is definitely one of these players who is a defenseman, a starting defenseman on 25 teams in the NHL. I put him a little bit higher than Boychuk in the Battle of the Johnnies. But I'll say I think that you'd be really smart to jump on Johnny Oduya. I mean, I remember in New Jersey he was very underrated, and he's one of these guys who I really like. Mike.
he's more of an offensive defenseman than Boychuk is, which
Yeah.
if a team needs a power play guy, I mean he's sort of buried on the Blackhawks with Keith and Seabrook and a guy like Nick Leddy, who his name has been out there more than Aduya. I mean,
And Jarmelson.
And Jarmelson. I mean, I moved Jarmelson because one thing that people have always said about the Blackhawks is that Jarmelson's a second pairing defenseman only on the Blackhawks. If he was on almost any other team, he'd be a first pairing defenseman. So
That's 100% true.
Yeah, I don't think they want to move him. I'm not so sure they want to move Aduya. If they could get him signed under a reasonable amount, maybe they would keep him. But this is one of those February, March deals where if they don't think they can get him signed, then they might move him and bring up some young guy from Peoria, wherever their minor league team is. I think it's Rock.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. At number 7, I got sort of a surprise. I think people won't maybe expect this, but I'm going with Antti Niemi, who is the starter of the San Jose Sharks right now, or at least slated to be the starter, I would think. There'll be some little bit of a battle there going into the season, perhaps. There should be. But I'm a big Niemi fan, as many of you know. I've always, even before he was in the NHL, I liked the guy, and he won a Stanley Cup and was a big reason why the Hawks won that Stanley Cup. And I don't blame him for anything that happened last year. But all that being said, I can see a scenario in my head from talking to people where Niemi gets out of town, where they actually, and the oddest thing this weekend, I was talking to somebody about something completely separate, and this has happened to me a couple times, and it's been really interesting. They take another call, they come back, and they're like, so I guess you've heard about the Sharks talking to Marty Brodeur. And I'm like, no, I haven't heard that at all. And I was like, oh yeah, well sorry, that was what I was just talking to somebody about. So this is how I found out. It's so funny. I found out a couple trades this way in my time, and it's a very funny thing because sometimes agents or different people in the NHL don't know what's being discussed yet and what's not being discussed. So they said, well, don't talk about it till tomorrow. So I held off till today. But yeah, the Sharks have talked to Marty Brodeur, and I think I think there's an insurance policy here at work, is what I think. Mike, you're muted, Mike.
Sorry about that. I was coughing.
No problem.
Imagine that.
It does make sense if San Jose is going to go with Alex Stalock as their number one. Which I know that Niemi's performance in the playoffs last year was underwhelming. If they decide to go with Stalock, they probably want a logical 1A, 1B option. And if they don't think Niemi can handle that, based on him being demoted from the starting goaltender to a number 2, then adding a guy like Brodeur would make sense. Honestly, I don't know if I see a market out there for Antti Niemi that they would get anything significant back. Plus his contract, I think he's making a little less than $4 million. At this late date, unless Minnesota can open up cap room, and then they have enough goaltenders as it is now with Brizgalov and Kemper and Backstrom until he gets hurt. Their situation.
Until he gets hurt.
Until he gets hurt, he always gets hurt. So of course.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I don't see a market out there for Niemi now. Maybe closer to the deadline, but they can't carry 3 goaltenders either. So I mean, they would have to move Niemi before they exercise a Brodeur option.
Oh, for sure, and I think that would definitely be the case. This would be a situation that wouldn't happen right away, but this is one of the people are checking in with Marty Brodeur to see what he's thinking, where he's going and stuff like that, and not necessarily to see if they want to sign him right now, or else he would be in camp. So I think that at this point, this is more of an option. If things don't go well, the one way you can change your culture, I've always said, besides changing your coach, is changing your goalie. And as much as I like Stalock, the Sharks are at a win now point in their development, and they probably need a goalie who's going to not lose them a playoff series, as opposed to a goalie who's going to win them a playoff series. And Marty Brodor's in there and would be solid, I believe, in a playoff series. So.
Yeah, I don't know if they consider Niemi a win-now goaltender anymore after last year. And somebody in the chat said Niemi to Buffalo, and Buffalo is not going to trade for a goaltender when their goal is to finish 30th.
Not yet, at least. Josh, thoughts on Niemi, or?
Yeah, you know what? always liked Niemi. In San Jose, I mean, unfortunately, it seems a lot of times the goaltender has been the blame for them not going as far as they should. Although Niemi, I think has escaped that a little bit this time around in San Jose.
Mhm.
But I do like him a lot, and I think he's a quality goaltender. I mean, he was on Chicago when they won the cup, was he not?
Yep.
Or am I wrong? Yeah, he was. That's what I thought. Yeah.
That was a big thing for him. So yeah, no, he was big part of them winning the cup that year, and they, even though it wasn't necessarily considered a year where, like, that was the year that Michael Leighton and Niemi faced off in the final. Much was made of the fact that these are two goalies that were not exactly stellar goalies, but people forget that Niemi won that. He beat the Sharks pretty much by standing on his head to get there. I mean, the Sharks should have been in that final. So that
I agree.
Now, number 6 is Drew Stafford. Now, this is, I know, probably higher than most people would put him. Drew Stafford will be 29, this time next year when we're going into the next season. And the staff is really, after starting off really strong, right, in the NHL, he has now fallen on sort of like bad luck, hard times type career. And the question, I've always been a fan of his ever since, even back in college. I think this is the kid who can really play, and I think that a change of scenery right now would be perfect. And he's not one of these guys who, I would necessarily project as part of Buffalo's future, Mike. You know what I mean? So if they could, Staff could be a good trade deadline pickup for somebody.
Yeah, well, okay. The book on him is that he has thrived and had good years in contract years. I mean, he earned $4 million a year on his, I think he was an RFA, and he had the year where he had, I think, close to 30 goals, and that's when they signed him to the deal where he's making $4 million a year. They're going to give him top 6 ice time this year for that very reason. I think you're right. I think that there's going to be some team out there who's looking for a top 6 winger, looking for a rent-a-player, and he's going to fit the bill. And Tim Murray is going to end up getting himself a 4th first-round pick in 2015, or maybe a second-round pick or a prospect. Also on Buffalo, and I actually think he probably rates higher on some GM's lists in terms of a UFA that they would want to talk to Tim Murray about, is Chris Stewart. Chris Stewart came from St. Louis in the Halak in the Miller deal. He's got 1 year left, making around the same amount of money that Stafford is. Big body, power forward type. Consistency of effort has been something that has plagued him throughout his career, but he's got all the physical tools. And if there's a team out there, like, for example, the New York Islanders, who need a winger to play with John Tavares, maybe that's a guy who's a fit. But
I looked into this. I asked about Stewart, and I was told that they are going to really, really work hard to re-sign him, that he is one of these guys that they want to be part of their growing forward. He's a little bit younger, maybe 2 years younger maybe than Stafford. I was told he was younger, and just they feel like his upside. He's the kind of guy the kind of team they want to make, and he fits in there. So I don't think he'd be moved. I think they're gonna have to come up with some money, but they're gonna have money, so it's not gonna be an issue of them being not gonna be up against the cap at all. Josh?
I think Stafford's been a huge disappointment in Buffalo. This is a guy that I think a lot of people had high hopes for, that they thought he'd be a top guy. I mean, I think he had a good year his first year, did he not? I mean, am I wrong in saying that? I gotta look that up.
Didn't he have a 30 goal? He had 30 scored 30
that
goals.
was the year before he hit. That was the year before his contract year.
Yeah.
Oh, well, one of those, I guess. Yeah, he had 52 points. He his first year he had 27 and 41, 38 and 64, 45 and 79, 34 and 71, 52 and 62, 50 and 80, and then it's just gone all the way down. Like, it's sorry for the sound effect.
No, it definitely plummeted.
He's not the player that I think a lot of people thought he was going to be. I mean, I had him on my fantasy team for 3 years, thinking, hey, this kid's going to be a 60 to 70 point forward in Buffalo.
There's the reason why he failed. Come on.
Now, his scoring has dropped off faster than you can
drop. Blame it on me. Here.
He's been a disappointment faster than you can drop names, man. It's going down quickly.
Plus, in the last, and I wonder if this has any effect on him, but in the last 2 years, we've started to hear his name whispered about in possible trade rumors, especially
I
at the
would
deadline.
go so
Remember?
far as to say it's been screamed about. I mean, it's really
Okay.
they have tried to
But
trade him.
could something like that maybe have an effect on him? Maybe
I
that's
think
why
so.
he's playing crappy. Maybe he likes it in Buffalo. I mean, where is he from? He's from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So
Yeah, no,
maybe he.
Josh. It's not that. He is a player with a lot of talent, and he's
Mhm.
somebody that you see, and it's clearly lack of motivation. He's when he's on, he works. He's
Yeah.
got talent to score, but it's inconsistent. It's just sometimes he's there, and sometimes you don't even notice him when he's on the ice.
I know. Next up on my list, number 5, I put Kimmo Timonen. And this is kind of surprising for some people because, I mean, people are probably going to be out there saying, well, for one, we know Kimmo has said and very publicly that he wants to end his career with the Flyers. And he also realized that, he's hurt and might not play again at this point as it sits right now. However, talking to people, the Flyers are very happy with their young defensemen. The Flyers are very much liking what they're seeing from their defense in general. And if in a scenario where the Flyers were to fall out of the playoff race, which I think is possible, I don't think it's going to happen, but it's very possible. Kimmo Timonen would be looking at the end of his career, and if he works really hard to get back and get healthy, and I think he will, and I do think he'll play again, then suddenly he becomes a very valuable trade deadline pickup if he's willing to go to a team for a few months. So I can totally see that happening. Then we move along a little bit quicker because we're running out of time a little bit. But number 4, I have Scotty Upshaw, who is another injury issue. But if Scotty Upshaw is healthy, he's a 30-goal scorer in the NHL. And he's also not going to be part of the Florida Panthers' plans moving forward. He's 30 years old now. And if you can get him at a reasonable price, and he's healthy, and he's also UFA, and he's having a good year, he's the perfect playoff acquisition for a team going into the playoffs.
And as Florida did with Christopher Stieg last year, since they have so much cap room, they could make Upshaw a very cost-effective ad for a team.
Yeah.
He's $3.5 million. They could, maybe take a haircut of like 1.6 or 1.7 million,
Exactly.
and he's an under $2 million player for a contending team, which that is valuable.
Yeah, and he's been a trade deadline pickup before, and he's been a valuable trade deadline pickup before. So I see him. I see Upshaw. I think we're going to be talking a lot about him at trade deadline for sure. Number 3 is 2 players, and I have this is Justin Williams and Mike Richards. And I know that people aren't necessarily thinking in terms, and there's no reason in the world the Kings would trade them in my mind before the end of the season. Well, Justin Williams is a UFA. Mike Richards is signed for a while. And by a while, I mean for a very long while. But, I don't think this happens during the season again because both are such great playoff players, and the Kings are on their way, and unless there's some sort of crazy collapse that keeps the Kings out of the playoffs, I don't see it happening. But I do believe that the next draft, that Mike Richards could be the Jason Spezza of the next draft. That we're seeing, a guy who's being moved around, and Justin Williams' rights will be moved. Just neither one of these 2 players will not be back with the Kings next year. It's just a matter of who it is. And both have shown enormous potential in the playoffs and have shown the ability. Justin Williams obviously has been an incredible playoff performer, and the Kings literally have so many contracts coming up. In order for them to keep this team alive, they're going to have to move one of these guys out. Josh.
Well, Eck, I mean, look at all the young talent that's come out of Los Angeles. I mean, the Kings could probably afford to move guys. I mean, look at what Tyler Toffoli has done in a short time with the LA Kings, and now he's a top 6 guy with the LA Kings. And again, I mean, look at Pearson as well. Pearson surprised a lot of people in the playoffs this past season. In LA, I mean, the guy was money, and Pearson with Toffoli have played really well together. And centering that line was Jeff Carter. So Pearson, Carter, and Toffoli. I mean, that was a pretty magical line during the playoffs last year. And then obviously the first line, Gaborik, Kopitar, and Brown. And then third line, Mike Richards and Justin Williams. So you can afford to move one of those guys. I think it might even be Mike Richards that gets moved out. Yeah, it's a big salary, but I know the LA Kings do like Justin Williams a lot.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mike.
The thing is that Richards, apparently had a heart-to-heart with Dean Lombardi, the GM of the Kings,
Indeed.
over the summer. His performance last year was terrible. Apparently, he did not come into camp last year in the best of shape. And he's got, I think, 5 or 6 years at $5.75 million, and they could have used a compliance buyout on him and called it a day. And everybody thought that they were going to do that. If they, they kept him. He's apparently going to come back this year in great shape, and they're hoping he returns to the Mike Richards who scores, 15 to 20 goals and is an annoying presence like he normally is. If he that, good luck trying to find some team that takes him with that contract for almost $6 million. Then it's not a compliance buyout, it's a buyout, and they have to clear money because they've got to sign Kopitar long term. So there's going to be some decisions made with Dean Lombardi and the Kings this year.
Yeah, I think it's short term there with Richards. And yeah, he did come into camp. Talking to people, he came into camp really in shape, dedicated himself intensely. So, the thing about Richards is he's just got tons of guts, and he's the kind of player that he's at times our fourth line center, but he is making too much money to be a fourth line center. But he is really in the playoffs. I'll have him on the ice any day of the week, and I still think without him they don't win either of those Stanley Cups, just because of some key moments where he scored key goals and key plays that really, and remember I always remember the game against the Ducks, game 1 against the Ducks, when Richards pinches and makes the play at the blue line and throws the puck across and wins it in overtime. That's vintage Mike Richards. Number 2, I have Mike Green. Okay, so here's another same kind of scenario with Capitals as Joel Ward, where if the Caps are going south, Mike Green's in a contract year, and he's got to be looking around right now, seeing all the defensemen that have been brought in, and seeing Barry Trotz and wondering, how do I fit? From what I've been told, they basically told him to just do his thing, go back to being Mike Green. And so people underestimate Trotz this way. They think he's going to make everybody be a defensive player. He's not really that way. When he has got offensive talented players, he wants to be offensive. And letting Mike Green go back to do his thing is very important for Mike Green. He's in his contract year. He's going to be playing his tail off. He'll only be 29 years old. Isn't it crazy that Mike Green's only 28 right now?
But he looks like a 50-year-old with how many injuries he's had. I
know. And but he's going to be a 29-year-old UFA this summer. And he could definitely help the power play. He could bring offense to a team. He could be hugely important at the deadline if he's moved out, and could bring the Caps, maybe, like I said, if their Caps are sort of taking one step backward to take 3 steps forward type mode. Moving Mike Green might be the time to do it, Mike.
Yeah, and the team that I keep putting together, and I think you've heard and I've heard and everybody has heard in terms of interest in Mike Green is Detroit, because he's a right-hand shot defenseman. He's a guy who probably plays 20 minutes plus, and I think he would fit with that, sort of, high-flying European style with Datsuk and Zetterberg and all those players. It would be a good fit, and they have a lot of money that they can pay him if they want to sign him long term. I don't think it would cost them a lot, because I think Washington, in a way, is after adding Niskanen and adding Brooks Orpik's salary, they may be looking not to dump him for nothing, but look to move Green on and get a tangible asset coming back.
Yeah, I think they can get a lot for him. Josh, thoughts?
Sorry, who's the player again?
Mike Green.
Mike Green. Yeah, I mean, I think he's got to stay healthy. If he could stay healthy, I think the Caps should definitely move him, because he's had so many injury issues over these past couple of years, and I just don't think he could be the Mike Green like he was when he was, putting up Paul Coffey type numbers. I don't think he could do that again. I think if he stays healthy enough and they could find a taker, I would trade him, and you might be able to get someone pretty decent for him too. But I don't like him. I don't like that he can't stay healthy.
Yeah, He's really been messed up by all the different coaches he's had, I think.
And he screwed me on my fantasy team for being hurt.
There you go.
There's the answer.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Josh, that is what matters.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you completely. So number one,
a lousy Stratomatic card, so he sucks.
It's always been terrible. Yeah. Number one is obvious, Bobby Ryan. So and this will be the name that we talk about a ton this year at the trade deadline. And the rumors of his turning down a contract were false. Although as is usually the case in these situations, I think that they're not 100% false. I think there's aspects to this that are going on right now. I think that there's a big contract coming up, and the Senators are sort of thinking in terms of, what about this, and they're probably saying, well, maybe more like this, and I think something like that ends up happening, and then you hear that he's turned down an offer like that. That's sort of how I think this whole thing played out.
Did you see the injury news with Bobby Ryan?
Yeah, he's healthy though. I mean, the concussion he got hit in the head, but talking to people around who are very familiar with Bobby Ryan's head, he is okay, and feeling fine, and just basically being very, very, very sorry. They're just being extremely cautious. Put it that way. That's all I can say. Help me, Mike. Thanks.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do an over/under here, and how many times we hear a rumor this year of Bobby Ryan going to Philadelphia, whether it's going to be over or under the number of times we heard of Eric Lindros going to Toronto.
I am going to come out and say something that's going to really surprise everybody, but I don't think he's ever going to be a Flyer. And I think that is, even though I don't think we're going to hear as much this year as we thought. I think we're going to hear more along the lines of Bobby Ryan to the Rangers. And I think I really think that could be, and even to the Devils. But I don't think he's going to be a Flyer. I'd love to have him in Philly. I think it would be fantastic for the area because he's from the area and there aren't many players. He's definitely the best hockey player to come out of South Jersey. He grew up.
There's only one problem, Mac. He's under 30, so he doesn't belong on the Devils.
Mm-hmm. Right. I know, but I know the Rangers have huge amounts of interest, and the Rangers are setting themselves up for this, I think. And that's where I think Bobby Ryan ends up. He's definitely, but I think that at the end of the day, there was a time when he came very close to becoming a Flyer when the Van Riemsdyk trade went down with Toronto. Bobby Ryan was almost a Flyer before that, and had that trade not gone down, I think he may have been a Flyer. But I don't think that that's going to happen now. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be under. I think we've expected to hear Bobby Ryan's, like, for the last 3 years. I would have agreed with you, Mike. I would have been wait till 2014-15. We're going to hear nothing but Bobby Ryan to Flyers rumors. But just getting the temperature right now, I don't get it. I don't think so. Before we go, Josh, Peter Carmonas, do you have something else to add?
Yes, I do. Peter Carmonas was interviewed by TSN. I didn't hear anything about this. Maybe you did, Eck, but apparently Carmonas has hired a New York investment bank, Allen & Co., to help him find an investor who would be willing to commit hundreds of millions of dollars into the team, but let him control it. Yes, you've heard that correctly. He wants to sell the team. He does not want to be the Carolina Hurricanes owner anymore. I don't know. Has that been out there at all?
I don't know if it has been out there.
And he's valued the Hurricanes at $420 million or more.
That's high.
Yeah.
But they're only worth what someone will pay, right? This is not what to me is. It's not. I wouldn't say it's been out there, but it's not surprising. Talking to people, people have known, I think, for a while that he wouldn't mind being in exactly the position he's sort of setting up there. He wants to still run the team, but he's not really the money person, and he's running it like a money person right now. And I think that that's a lot on him. There are rich people, and then there are really, really rich people. He's a very rich person, but he's not a really, really rich person, which is what you need around a team.
Yeah, and it's ironic that his son, who apparently they've had a falling out, is now part of the Pittsburgh Penguins management team. And obviously, being his son, he would be one of the people who would inherit the team if his father passed away. So I think he's looking. There's been some whispers out there that not Florida, not the Islanders, but the Hurricanes were the team that if there's going to be a shift someplace else to a new market, it might be a Carolina.
Yeah, I've heard that too. The one thing I'll say about that is the NHL, at least as long as Gary Bettman's there, I know one of the little things, the kind of the unspoken thing about the NHL with Bettman is that he never wants to move a team that's won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And if you look,
Plus, they have a huge fan base too, Act. Like how many
yeah,
Canucks are out there?
because the Stanley Cup creates that. Like the whole thing. I mean, they always had a great fan base. They always have. But once you win a Stanley Cup, it gets to another level, and it feels as if you put a team in there. They go and they win a Stanley Cup. It feels very wasted to the NHL to move them. They've already created something. So whether or not I mean I don't know that that's a rule, but it's just something that it would be very unlikely in my mind for them to move.
Oh.
Josh,
this has just come out from Pro Hockey Talk. Apparently now there are unnamed NHL agents that are weighing in on the Johansson thing.
unnamed agents.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Wait. Before go ahead.
You know what? I always feel sorry for the unnamed agents. I mean, how do they sign their names? What do they do when they get their driver's license? They're just named.
In other words, agents who want to quash any positive publicity that Overhart gets for getting Johansson the best deal he possibly can.
Or maybe they want him as a client. Maybe they want him as a client.
All right. So what are these poor Sap's unnamed agents saying?
I think it's been terribly mishandled by the player and the agent. One unnamed agent told the Hockey News,
Bingo.
It flies into the face of all convention. I look at it almost like a lawyer dealing with a client in court. I would tell the player,
convention.
I would tell the player, if you insist on taking this position, our chances of success are almost nil. I don't like your chances at all.
I'm sorry.
I don't like your chances at all, and I'm under obligation to tell you that. Now, according to the Hockey News, most agents reacted in a rage from being perplexed to flabbergasted at the tactic taken by Overhart in this Johansson negotiation.
Now, wait a second. I knew they would be perplexed, but to be flabbergasted?
Well, let me just say this. If you want to see more backstabbing than the Real Housewives of Atlanta, watch The Real Agents of the NHL. Give me a break. These guys, these are guys who are in competition with Overhart for clients, and if he's seen out there as getting the best bang for the buck for his client, then people will flock to him and not leave other agents, but they'll go to him. He's making a reputation here, and they're trying to probably destroy that reputation by saying his tactics are flabbergasting. I mean,
doesn't it help them? Doesn't it help them though if they got a stupid deal?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, yes, but
no. I mean, there's a lot of agents out there. I can tell you right now that these unnamed agents aren't named Donnie Meehan or Rich Winter. There's a lot of agents out there. You know what I mean? So there's agents who have nothing to lose. There's agents who have no players in the NHL right now. Maybe we're trying to. There's all kinds of. Any agent who says something like this about another agent is the reason they're unnamed, and it's gutless. I mean, I don't think what he's doing is right either. But that's ridiculous to come for an agent to come out and say something like this is ludicrous, and completely asinine. And if I had an agent say that to me, if I was interviewing him and he said something like that to me, I would really have a hard time even writing it because it feels so agenda based. You obviously have something to do, some
right.
vindictive feelings.
And if you did write it, you would want to get his name on the record because then you could show that a particular agent is trying to slime another agent because, I mean, I'm sorry, this is what agents do. They use their tactics, they use their success with one client to get other clients. And if Overhart, gets Johansson a $4 million a year deal for a couple years, he's going to be looked upon as, okay, he did the right thing for his client. He set the benchmark for the bridge deal. I want to go to this guy. I'm gonna go to this guy instead of some other guy who might not push the envelope and get me the most money that I possibly can. That's all that's going on here. It's like a bunch of backstabbers.
Well, it is that, and also, there's no, but Oberhart, you can argue here, has already made a name for himself in this situation. And if you're a certain kind of player, like we know who Oberhard is now, right? We know who he is. Like how many of us knew him even before this? I mean, I knew him because I deal with agents, but I'm guaranteeing you that 1 out of every 5,000 people you would talk to in the hockey world doesn't know, would never have heard of him.
We know him, but he has to come through. He has to set the benchmark now. He has to get the deal. He's made a name for himself. His name is notable. We know him like we know Alan Walsh, but we know Alan Walsh for other reasons.
We sure do, Mike.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I know him for blocking me on Twitter. Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, he blocked us all at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, now Overhard is going to need to make the deal to cauterize his reputation, and if he does that, he'll be a very busy man.
And yes and no. I mean, this is the thing about the NHL, right? It's a small league, and there's not collusion, but there's not collusion. To me, that they're not going to. These owners and GMs are not going to be thrilled about dealing with Overhard. And so if you're a player going to look for an agent, you can say on the one side, you can say, okay, yeah, I still got a lot for Ryan Johansson, but on the other side, you could say, wow, if I'm a fringe player, see, this is a movement. Like to me, there's different kinds of agents, and this is a movement, in my opinion, for Overhard to try to get from that one level to that other level, And he's at that one level now. He's got guys like Brandon Dubinsky. He's got Ryan Johansson. He doesn't have like Sidney Crosby or Alex Ovechkin. He's got these, top players, but not top tier players. And there are some agents that are really good in that level, and they stay in that level forever, and that's where they want to be because they don't want to deal with the Meehan's and the Winters of the world.
He wants to be Pat Brisson. That's what he wants.
Pat Brisson is way up there, yeah, and he's totally classy. But there's other people who aren't classy that are at that top level, and then there's very many of. I would say there's probably like a dozen or so in the Oberhart level, and then there's about 500 at the lower level who each have one player or who represents somebody's brother. And that's like, there's that too. So to me, this is an attempt to move from that middle level to the higher level, and the problem with that is the higher level doesn't really work for agents who take this kind of tact. So he's sort of just painted himself. That's just my 2 cents on it. Right. But that is all the time we have for today. And I appreciate you guys joining us very much. Thanks for watching the show. Please continue to watch it. Tell your friends about it because we're here every day, and it's become my favorite part of the day. So definitely check out. You can check out Josh at Josh Rimmer NHL or NHL.
Josh Rimmer Hockey.
Josh Rimmer Hockey.
Josh Rimmer Hockey.
You should so buy Josh Rimmer NHL. And you can check out Josh Rimmer Hockey, and Mike is at Mike in Buffalo. I am at Eklund, and you are at ease to go about the rest of your day. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. Talk to you then.